Okay, so I was making a video on another platform while I made some homemade ice cream and did some dishes and stuff. And I had wanted to talk about uh, trigger warning, DV, sexuality, violence, infidelity. Yeah. Oh, my ex. And not so much him, but just this phenomenon that I was introduced to through him. I am in school partly for like relationship psychology and partially for like victimization and criminalization, trauma informed care. A lot of you have heard me say I want to work with like violence survivors, but also with violence perpetrators, um, because while you're patching up one survivor, he's already moved on to the next. And I do say he because the majority are perpetrated by men. Um, we went through this big thing where we tried to be nice and we said, oh, abuse goes both ways and violence, and it does. Do not get me wrong, but the majority are men, and it's easier to speak in. Yeah. Anyway, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole because that would keep me going all day. But so the thing I want to talk about was infidelity, and not just sexual infidelity. So, like, for those who are new here, my husband and I were together I was 19 and he was 20 when we first met. And we were friends for a very long time before we got together. And we got together and I got pregnant very quickly. And we had our child, but we also had addiction issues going on because we had not planned on having a child. And, neither of us really had ours together and we weren't grown ups. I was living with my dad, he was living with his grandma. And things went wrong. And nobody back then talked about things like living your best life or community support or any of that stuff. It was like sink or swim, and if you can't do it, we'll take the baby and, go off to rehab. And I didn't know as much then about being a mom and a person and stuff as I do now. And we tried for a couple years. We tried hard, and eventually we grew apart. And then we didn't talk for a long time. He got with his new baby mama and decided he wanted to call things off with me. And I, meanwhile, decided I wanted to be clean anyway. So we split and we just didn't talk. I went back to rehab. He went wherever. I stayed clean for years. That was my last rehab trip. It was almost 18 years ago now. He did not. Apparently, the new girlfriend didn't fix him. But they did have two beautiful daughters who I adore. And then him and I came back into each other's lives at some point. He had been in a halfway house for 3 years, was working there as staff because he had nowhere to go, or living there. And like the successful inpatients in that particular treatment facility would become staffish, but it wasn't a recovery house. It was a treatment facility, but they weren't paid staff, so it was kind of like weird. Anyway, but he was also working, like, had just gotten a job at a factory that he was supposed to be starting when we started talking to each other again. And we spent a lot of time talking while I drove back and forth to Reading to pick him up and take him to see his kids on the weekends and brought him to see me. And at some point, he asked if he could move in and be my boyfriend again. And we did that. And it went bad quickly. He laid on my couch for about 6 months while I worked full-time as an employee of the state. And he couldn't even get up and go to the daycare and pick up my son for me most days. So, like, he ate my food and he drove my car with no license, and I helped him get his license back so that would stop. Cost me a lot of money and time. I got him a job finally with a friend of mine, who is no longer a friend, by the way, because when I came out about all of the abuse, she felt it reflected negatively on her family business and that I should keep it to myself. Family values for you. I'd been her friend for 17, 18 years. She didn't even like my husband. She just, really thinks the world revolves around her. It doesn't. Nobody who could see my Facebook which is the only place I was posting anything about at the time, ever going to buy a roof from her, just to be clear. But anyway, and those who would have, like my dad, still would have, because they are not assholes who judge people. But anyway, he didn't want to be in a relationship. He didn't want to do anything. He didn't want to interact. He stopped talking to me as soon as he moved in. He started using behind my back, which it took me a long time to pick up on. I picked up on it when he stole from my son. He stole a Christmas money that I'd given him that was supposed to go buy stuff for my son. Actually, he didn't directly steal from my son, but he stole money that he was supposed to use to pick something up. And then he left for a while. And then he overdosed, and then he begged to come back because he needed my help. And then he left again, and then he came back. And then there was the car bombing, and he left because he couldn't handle the stress. He left me alone with my son during a car bombing in my backyard. So this was repeated. Like, he was never a partner to me. He just, I took care of him. When I had my brain surgery, he stole my pain meds from me. He wrote like that. This is the reason I'm not on pain medication. I'm supposed to be on, like, lifetime, like, pain management for my back, but I rarely ever took it, and I was coming up clean on my urines, and that was because he was taking them from me. Sorry, my son was getting out of the shower. I'm trying to do this, like, not that they don't know everything. They saw everything, but, you know. Anyway, fast forward, I was pregnant. I saw we had broken up, got back there, broke up, got back there, moved houses while he wasn't living with me. He asked to move in. He lived in my basement for a while and said he was going to pay his part of the bills. And like 3 weeks in, he owed me $2,000 and hadn't paid a cent. Then he insisted on me just taking his paycheck and us getting back together, which he has now turned into me committing financial abuse, in his opinion, because I paid all the bills, put everything in my name. But when he did work, which is about 6 months out of every year, because he's really bad at keeping a job, I did take his paycheck and I gave him whatever was left after the bills were paid. And I paid his child support out of my taxes, and I bought him cigarettes whether he was working or not, and he bought pot whether he was working or not, and he always had gas, and he always had a cell phone, and he always had food, but he thinks I stole all his money. He left me in debt, almost $20,000 in debt that he ran up, not me. Everything was in my name. Anyway, all of this is a segue, because we were going to talk about infidelity. So let's start with, he rarely had adult relations with me. Maybe once or twice a month when he was in the mood. No matter what I did, I could buy lingerie, and I did. I could buy toys. I could initiate. I could try being intimate. I could set up dates and romantic situations and take him to concerts. And we would go to concerts, and he'd be all over me. And we'd get home, and he'd have no interest. And then he'd yell at me. It was always my fault somehow. I wasn't sexy enough. I wasn't initiaty enough. I was too initiaty. I was too sexy. Like, but it wasn't even the sexual infidelity. He tried a few times. Like, when I was in labor with our youngest, he was really awful and wouldn't put his phone down the whole time. And he told me it was a work thing. Turns out he had been supposed to pay a dominatrix to come to a hotel room that weekend, which I don't know where he thought he was getting the money, because, I mean, again, he gave me all his paychecks, but he was trying to work things out so he could still see her while our son was in the NICU. Because he was born so premature from the stress of being married to my husband. I found that out a long time later. But the majority of the infidelity that he had was these conversations with sex bots. The DMs you get that are always like, "Hi, this is crazy, but I just saw your message and I think you're really handsome." And then they tell you, like, how much they love you after the third word that you said to them. And they always ask specific questions like, "What did you have for lunch today? And how did you sleep last night? And how is work going?" Things that are targeted specifically to feed the ego of a man, by the way. And they're almost always either completely botted AI, or they are college students paid to sit in a room and send these text messages until they get engagement. And there's a whole documentaries out there about how the system works. My thing is that he knew they were fake. He knew they weren't real. He would tell me repeatedly he knew they weren't real. But it was like he was living in some kind of like intentional denial, because he'd be like, I know they're not real. And then he'd have the picture of this girl as the screensaver on his phone. He would risk our marriage, something real. And it's because he doesn't know how to have a real... So like everything that he wanted, someone to listen to him, someone to support him, someone to care what he had for lunch, I gave him those things. I bought him lunch to make sure he ate. I bought him socks and underwear and toilet paper and toothpaste. And I held him when he cried in his sleep. And I listened to his dreams, and I supported his goals. If he wanted to go back to school, I tried to help him get enrolled. When he needed his license back, I helped him do the paperwork. When he struggled, I was there for him. When he needed to pay his support, I helped him. When he needed a job, I helped him. Like, I gave him everything he said he wanted, and I listened to him. The problem is that I wanted the same in return, and he had no interest. He'll tell you that he couldn't trust me, that I didn't listen to him when I would ask him thousands of times to talk to me. Just tell me anything, and he wouldn't. My kid brought me water. He loves me. So he would insist that, like, I didn't care. I didn't listen. I wasn't involved. To this day, he'll be like, well, I know all these things about you, and you don't know anything about me. And it's like, yeah, because even though you didn't listen to me, even though you didn't ask, even though you weren't interested, I kept trying to connect with you. I kept reaching out and telling you things. I kept sharing my heart. You put yourself on an island with a 6-foot thick wall covered in barbed wire, and then yelled about how I didn't care about you. Anything that any normal human being would try to do to engage, I did. And then you yelled at me. Like, it was just... I don't know if it's because his parents left when he was young. I don't know if it's because his stepmother was a hard, raging bitch. I don't know if it's because he never had anyone to connect with before me. I don't know if it's because his family's idea of friendship is like, call you when they need 3 days of help at their job and they know you need some money. I don't know what it is, but he has no concept of how to care about someone. I do believe he loves me in the only way he knows how to love anybody. But he's the same with his children. He doesn't ask how they are. He doesn't care what their grades are or how they're doing in school or if they're sleeping at night. When I told him that the last time he left here, his son ran to his room, like, was in his room, hiding under a blanket, holding a flashlight and a Minecraft sword, prepared to fight his father off if he came for him. He didn't care. He doesn't care about the damage he does to his son. He told me that I create the dynamic by telling his son things, despite the fact that he broke the stove and flipped out at me right in front of this child, despite the fact that he was standing outside the child's room screaming, you're not a baby anymore. You don't need to be protected anymore. One of these days it'll be just me and you, and your mom won't be between us. How terrifying for a 5-year-old. It's terrifying for me, and I'm a grown-up. But in his mind, his emotions are the only thing that are real. His needs are the only thing that count. He calls his children when he's feeling bad about himself. He called me from jail when he got picked up a couple weeks ago. I knew who it was and where it was, because 12:30 in the morning for a Montgomery County building to be calling me, there's only so many reasons. But when I offered him the other day to send him a picture of the letter the lawyer sent, you see the letterhead right through the envelope. I didn't open it. We've already talked about this too. He said no. But there's a picture on his screen of a girl that looks like she's 17 at most, that he knows isn't really a girl and he knows isn't real, who he will tell you is not his relationship, but is the best conversation he's had in years. Because he could pour all his darkest secrets out to her and she didn't judge. Well, computer programs don't judge. I didn't judge either. I know all his secrets. I didn't judge. He hates himself so much. And that's the part that hurts. It had nothing to do with me ever. I couldn't have made things better if I tried. But he was a genuinely good guy 25 years ago. And he spent the last 25 years not taking care of himself. You know, drugs and unchecked mental health issues will do that to a person. And now he's the monster under the bed. His 5-year-old doesn't want to talk to him. My 16-year-old called him dad for years. Won't now. My 23-year-old won't call him anything except for to tell him to leave his brother and his mom alone. This hearing in a couple of days has me stressed out. I just want him to go and agree what he needs to agree to. I know he's not really going to pay it, but once he agrees to it, then at least I can get the tax return to pay me every year and stuff. If he files his tax, I don't know, because I did that for him every year too, and I obviously didn't do it this year because I don't have his paperwork, because then you have to admit to me how much money he squandered. He legitimately said to me, well, if I was out of touch with reality, why are you upset? I said, because your version of reality negates the part where everybody here did everything for you, and you were our, a walking nightmare to live with. You stole the oxygen, you threw fits, you were mean, you were nasty, you were self-absorbed, you were violent, and we did everything for you. And then when you went and made enough money that you could have at least taken care of us, we could have the electricity on above 50 in this house. It's freezing. The first night that my toddler hasn't slept with me in a week, so I turned my bedroom down even further than normal. I don't think I'll sleep much tonight. It's cold. I don't know how you get that damaged. I wish I had some answer. I don't know why I attract the damaged ones. Because besides the fact that I sit in my room talking to myself, I'm pretty cool, actually. I know what I'm looking for this time around. I just don't know how to meet people at all. I haven't had to do it in a long time. I don't want to be alone forever. Sleeping alone for this long has sucked. But also, being awake alone also sucks. And I'm not talking, again, about adult activity. I do like water. I don't know. I wanted to talk about the whole bot thing, but I don't feel like I ever made a point. It's a weird thing to live with. I don't know. It's kind of like watching the regime talk, and they lie to your face, and you're like, I know you're lying to me. Some people are like, I know they're lying to me, but I like it, I guess. I don't know. I guess that's the whole point. He doesn't want someone he has to feel obligated to, so if he knows they're fake, he doesn't feel any guilt for using them. It may not be a Victoria's Secret model, but he is not going to do better. I paid $4,000 a year and a half ago for us to be able to have another kid. To reverse his vasectomy. I want my $4,000 back because I didn't get my baby. And I'm running out of time, and I don't think I'm going to meet somebody else in time. Honestly. How fucked up is that? I genuinely was willing when we first got divorced to still try that. Fortunately, he was in West Virginia, because that probably would have taken me right back. I don't know why the color is changing. I don't know if it's the bouncy ball on my TV, because I do have a Zen light that changes color, but it's not on right now. It's one of my favorite things, actually. I got it because I have a lotus tattooed on my leg, too. But it just sits on a base that changes color, and it goes to the flower, and it puts the lotus on the ceiling. It's pretty cool. That's my crystal ball. Oh, that was a bottle of spearmint oil. That's to keep the spiders away. I should probably make sure that didn't break. Alright, Later, YouTubers.